There are days when the world feels impossibly heavy, as if an invisible force is pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The weight isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and it seeps into every corner of my life, colouring everything in shades of grey. Each morning I wake up hoping for a change, but the darkness is always there, waiting for me, wrapping itself around my thoughts before I even open my eyes. The room feels colder, the air thicker, and the silence almost deafening. It's as if the darkness has a presence of its own, pressing in from all sides, making the simple act of getting out of bed feel like an impossible task. Even the most basic routines, like making a cup of tea, become monumental challenges. My limbs feel heavy, my mind foggy, and exhaustion seems to live deep within my bones. Every movement is slow, deliberate, as if I'm wading through thick mud and the smallest tasks leave me drained. I watch the world outside my window, seeing people go about their lives, laughing, talking, moving with purpose. But I feel separated from it all, as if there's an invisible barrier between me and everyone else. I'm a silent observer, disconnected and numb, unable to reach out or join in. The days blur together, one indistinguishable from the next. Time loses all meaning and the loneliness settles in, becoming a constant, suffocating presence. It's as if I'm stuck in a loop, watching the world move on while I remain frozen in place. Friends and family try to reach out, their concern genuine, their words kind. But no matter how hard they try, their voices can't break through the silence I've built around myself. The phone rings, messages pile up, but I can't find the strength to respond. The thought of explaining how I feel, of trying to connect, is overwhelming. It takes more energy than I have, and so I retreat further, turning away from those who care about me, even though I wish I could let them in. In the end, I find a strange comfort in the quiet darkness. Here, nothing is expected of me. I can simply exist, hidden away from the world, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket. It's not peace, but it's a place where I don't have to pretend, and for now, that's enough. My world lost its colour. Everything was muted, as if a grey filter covered my eyes. Food was tasteless, music was just noise, and laughter felt foreign. Familiar places became empty, memories faded, and joy was replaced by numbness. Every decision felt overwhelming, each day a fog with no direction. I watched others move forward while I remained stuck, weighed down by shame and isolation. The darkness became both my sanctuary and my prison. I felt utterly alone, convinced no one could understand this emptiness. The world moved on, but I was lost within myself. Reaching out for help was the hardest step, a whisper of hope in the silence. For days, maybe weeks, I sat with the weight of my thoughts, feeling isolated and unsure if anyone could truly understand what I was going through. The idea of asking for help felt almost impossible, as if admitting I needed support would make my struggles more real, more permanent. But in the quiet, a small voice inside me urged me to try, to reach out, even if my words came out shaky and uncertain. Making the call to a doctor felt impossible, but I did it. My hands trembled as I dialed the number, my heart pounding in my chest. Each ring seemed to echo my doubts. What if I couldn't explain how I felt? Or worse, what if I was dismissed? But I pressed on, because deep down, I knew I couldn't keep carrying this burden alone. The act of reaching out, even in fear, was a small act of courage. The doctor listened, not judging or offering quick fixes, but truly hearing me. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. He didn't rush me or minimize my pain. Instead, he gave me space to speak, to let out the words I'd kept bottled up for so long. His calm presence made it easier to share, and I realized that sometimes just being heard can be the first step toward healing. He explained depression as a medical condition, not a personal failing. He showed me diagrams and talked about how the brain can sometimes work against us, how it's not a matter of willpower or character. Hearing this, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For so long I'd blamed myself, thinking I was weak or broken, but now I understood that what I was experiencing was something many people go through, and it wasn't my fault. That simple reframing was a lifeline, a reminder I wasn't alone or broken beyond repair. It was as if someone had thrown me a rope while I was drowning, and for the first time I could see a way out. I felt a flicker of relief, a sense that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The doctor's words gave me hope, and I started to believe that recovery was possible. He spoke of therapists and specialists, people who could help guide me through the fog. He explained that there were professionals trained to help, that I wouldn't have to navigate this journey alone. The idea of building a support team, of having people in my corner, made the path ahead seem less daunting. It was comforting to know that help existed and that reaching out was not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Leaving his office, the world wasn't brighter, but a seed of possibility had been planted. The air felt a little lighter, and I carried with me the knowledge that I had taken the first step. I knew the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but I also knew I wasn't starting from nothing. I had support, and I had hope, however small. The darkness remained, but now there was a faint glimmer of light on the horizon. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but a subtle shift. A sense that things could change, that I could find my way out of the shadows. That glimmer was enough to keep me moving forward, one small step at a time. It wasn't a sunrise, but it was the first star in a long night. That star, small and distant, was a sign that hope was possible, even in the darkest times. And sometimes, that's all we need. A single point of light to remind us that we're not alone, and that healing can begin with just one brave step. My first therapy session was in a gentle, safe space. The therapist listened with empathy, inviting me to share at my own pace. She introduced me to cognitive behavioral therapy, tools to challenge the negative stories in my mind. We examined thoughts like, "I am a failure," searching for evidence and balance. It was slow, sometimes painful work, but she was a steady guide. I learned my depression wasn't a flaw, but a complex interplay of biology and experience. With her support, I began to rebuild, one small step at a time. Each exercise, each small task, became a building block for hope. The first crack of light came unexpectedly, a sparrow on my windowsill. It was early morning, the world still wrapped in a gentle hush, and I was lost in the familiar fog that had settled over my days. But there it was, a tiny visitor. Its presence so ordinary yet so startling in its quiet insistence. I watched as it tilted its head, feathers ruffling in the cool air, and for a moment the heaviness inside me shifted. For the first time in months, I noticed its delicate feathers and felt a flicker of connection. The intricate patterns, the subtle colors, details I'd forgotten how to see, suddenly came into focus. I realized I was witnessing something alive, something persistent, and it stirred a memory of what it felt like to care, even if just for a heartbeat. That moment proved the numbness wasn't permanent. It was as if a tiny crack had formed in the wall I'd built around myself, letting in a sliver of warmth. I found myself smiling, almost involuntarily, surprised by the sensation. It was small, but it was real. I started seeking out these small sparks, sunlight breaking through clouds, the way a single sunbeam could transform a grey morning into something golden. I began to notice how the world kept offering these moments, even when I felt undeserving of them. The taste of a strawberry, sweet and sharp on my tongue, reminded me that pleasure was still possible. A child's laughter drifting through an open window made me pause, the sound bright and unburdened, a reminder of innocence and joy. I wrote them down, collecting proof that light could exist even in darkness. Each entry in my journal became a small act of defiance against despair, a way to anchor myself to hope. I realized that these moments, though fleeting, were worth remembering. Bad days still came, sometimes with a force that threatened to undo all my progress. But now I had reminders, tangible evidence that the darkness wasn't absolute. I could hold on to these memories, these fragments of light, and let them guide me through the hardest hours. Each moment of light was a victory, a sign of hope returning. Even the smallest glimmer felt monumental, a quiet celebration of resilience. I learned to cherish these victories, no matter how minor they seemed. The wall of despair began to crumble, letting in more brightness. With every new crack, the world outside grew clearer, more inviting. I realized that healing wasn't a sudden transformation, but a gradual process, light seeping in bit by bit. Through the cracks, I glimpsed the outline of a hopeful future. It was still distant, still uncertain, but it was there, waiting for me to step into it, one small moment of light at a time. My therapist compared recovery to tending a neglected garden. Each small act, opening curtains, making breakfast, answering a call, was a seed of hope. At first, progress was invisible, but I kept planting, protecting these fragile beginnings from self-doubt. Slowly, shoots of joy appeared, enjoying fresh air, being moved by music. My garden wasn't lush yet, but it was no longer barren. I learned to celebrate small victories and appreciate how far I'd come. Some seasons were harder than others, but the garden was now a place of growth. It became a living testament to my resilience. As my mind healed, the world regained its colour, first in pastels, then in vibrant hues. I took up painting again, this time capturing light and hope instead of darkness. My first painting was the sparrow, its feathers flecked with gold to symbolize new beginnings. Art became therapy, a way to express feelings beyond words. I painted sunrises and parks, exaggerating colours to create the world I wanted to see. Each brushstroke was an affirmation of hope and progress. My canvases tracked my journey from darkness to light. I was no longer just finding light, I was learning to create it. Recovery wasn't linear. There were setbacks, but now I had tools and hope. The darkness became a visitor, not a permanent resident. I reconnected with loved ones, not out of obligation, but genuine desire. Laughter returned, deep and real, dissolving the old barriers. I no longer saw depression as lost time, but as a transformative journey. It taught me strength, compassion, and the value of perseverance. The sun rose fully, bathing my world in golden light. The work continues, but the long night is over. I emerged stronger, having learned my mind could be my greatest ally. Today, I stand in a world full of light and possibility. The weight is gone, replaced by a sense of freedom and gentle anticipation. My inner landscape is a thriving garden, cultivated with care and resilience. Hope is something I've built through courage, support, and self-kindness. The scars remain, but as proof of survival and strength. I haven't conquered depression, but I've learned to live and thrive alongside it. The light within me endures, a beautiful, unextinguishable hope.